right, all right, all right. It's that time, guys. Here we go. It's my time to rise. It's my time to shine. It's my time to live. It's my time to fly. Story time, guys. Let's get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. Nothing hold me down, gotta do it. Cause I may not get another chance, I believe it. Good afternoon. We are so excited to be here today with you. It is story time, and as always, we are so excited to bring you some interesting people with some interesting stories. And today, this is really, really something for me because I have a young man that I happen to go to high school with, and he is going around the country and showing other people how to share their stories. So that's perfect, right? And you may know him and you may not. His name is Barry B. Mixon. And Mr. Mixon, let me just give you a little sneak peek of who he is. He is a gem hunter storyteller. And his name, once again, is Barry Mixon. And that's Barry B. Mixon. And he also has his own show that he does. And on his show, you're going to learn more about how he brings out the story to other people. But today we're going to talk about Barry himself. We're going to dive into his childhood. We're going to dive into how this all came about. So I am so excited. So sit back and get ready as I bring in my guest. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Barry B. Mixon. Barry, are you with me?
I am here. Thank you. And happy to be with you. How are you today, Crystal?
I am good. I'm trying to get my position right. Why? With cameras, it's funny because when you turn one way, it turns another. And you be like, I'm like, oh my goodness. Listen, man, I am so excited to have you here today. I thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to just be here. And like I told the individuals, we go back, man. We go back.
Yeah, we do.
It's always special for me to do a show with people that I know personally. All right. So first and foremost, I want everybody to know a little bit about your childhood. I can go in and read your bio, which I'm not going to do right now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to actually let you just talk a little bit about who that native young boy was, because at the time before you became a man, you were a boy. Who that young boy was from Harlem, New York City, before he went into Marine Corps. Let's talk about who is Barry Mixon, the child.
Oh, man. Well, like you said, I was born in Harlem, New York.
I can't hear you. I just lost
you. I'm sorry. I got you. All right, cool. Said you unmuted me. All right. So, hey, everybody. So, as Crystal said, my name is Barry B. Mixon, and I was born 1960 in the old Harlem Hospital. My mother used to always say that. I wasn't born in a new one, the old Harlem Hospital, which was kind of funny because when they built the new one, she told people that, she told me that I wasn't her child, that there was a mistake. So that kind of gives you an idea of the kind of childhood that I had growing up. I have three brothers. Well, actually, three brothers and a sister. Grew up in Harlem, moved to the South Bronx, and then we moved to Jamaica, Queens, and that's how I wound up going to Jamaica High School. My childhood was not the best. Not the best. My mom was an alcoholic, a serious alcoholic, so there was a lot of issues with me growing up. And like Jamaica High School, one of the things I love about Crystal is Crystal, when you invited me to the reunion, it really filled a lot of holes inside of me because I had forgotten. I knew Jamaica High School. I even remembered the address because I spent 14 years in the Marine Corps. You used to always have to put your address. So 16701 Gothic Drive. I knew that like I knew it, like my name. And I didn't remember high school because I tell people all the time, a lot of kids grow up with their mom or dad. I grew up with a dragon. My mom was kind of a dragon. And I understand it now. Therapy is a wonderful thing. Um, but that's what got me into doing what I do today. So that was my childhood. I was in the Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps in 1978. Literally, I turned 18 in boot camp, which was the worst birthday gift I ever had. My worst birthday I ever had in my life. Um, did 14 years in Marine Corps, not all active duty. Got out, got married, things as had kids. Um, my kids had passed away. Actually, they died, and I was homeless in 1992. I was living all over the country, trying to. Those are my kung fu years, as I call it, and wound up being in Chicago, Illinois, in the summer of 1992. And by the winter of that year, I was homeless, and for a year, living in the streets of Chicago, and everything kind of starts from there. As far as just finding out who I was, going from my mom used. I thought my name. Excuse me. I know this is a family show, but I thought my name. I thought my name was. It is a family show. I thought my name was Butthole until I was like 12. When my mother told me, I saw the birth certificate one day sitting on my mother's bed. I remember like it was yesterday. And I looked at it. My mother said, "You can look at it." And I was like, "Okay." And I said, "Barry Mixon." And I said it like it was somebody else. And she said, "That's your name." And I remember saying, kind of in joke and kind of serious, like, "That's my name," because my name was everything else other than that. And
Wow.
that's
So,
how I wound up being homeless. Yeah, because of just the anger inside of me.
so let me ask you this. So, was you outspoken and telling stories and doing all that as a child, like in elementary school?
People ask me that often because I'm a gemmological storyteller. No, I really was shy. I was really a shy kid. The way I learned how to tell stories was I'm a television kid. I grew up with television. My mother put me like the 60s. We all grew up in the 60s. Television was just getting bigger and bigger. And I was one of these kids that my mother would put me in front of the television as a babysitter. And because of what I was going through with my mom and my family, my own self esteem, television and movies were my escape. We didn't go to movies back then so much, but television was my escape. So I literally lived my life through Jacques Cousteau and Mutual Omaha, Wild Kingdom, and the Cosby Show and all soap operas, all these things. So that's when I began to understand the power of stories. And my mother was a hopeless romantic. So I would watch all the romantic movies on Humphrey Bogart, all these different things, and she would be crying. And then eventually I learned when I should be crying in the movies, and I got real sensitive. So that's how I learned how to tell stories.
So, do you remember the very first time that you told a story? I mean, when I talk about a story, I mean like something that starts with that beginning, the middle, and the end that has a whole theme to it, where you used your imagination and you really had something to share. Do you remember how old you was when you did that?
Really, the concept of stories really happened for me when I was homeless because I thought I was going to die. Like I said, I came to Chicago in July of 1992. By December, began to really no, by October, I began to understand that wow, I'm moving towards homelessness, and because I didn't have family, I didn't have friends, so by December 15th, I know exactly the date. I remember talking to God because I thought death was going to happen at any time. In fact, there were days when it was like, can we just get this over with? And that's
Wow.
when, yeah, literally. I mean, in the winter, you guys know Chicago. So imagine being in Chicago. This winter was okay. This winter was like summertime for me in comparison to the way winter was, 10, 15, 20 below, and I'm outside. So it wasn't to that day that I began to pray to God to just either take me out or give me, if you could get me out of this some kind of way, that I promise God that I would spend the rest of my life helping people figure out their value, figure out who they are. And that's when stories really started evolving. And it was this book. This is the actual book that I had. You can see how beat up it is, that I had when I was homeless, because I just had my duffel bag and whatever little stuff that I had, duffel bag meaning like the Marine Corps bag. And this book I had stuffed in the side thinking I would read it one day. And since I wasn't going to church and I knew I didn't have enough time to quote the Bible, you know how people quote the Bible, you know, Job said, and I'm like, no, I ain't got that. Not to mention, I didn't feel good about talking to God like that, because I felt like God would say, oh, now you want to talk to me. You didn't want to talk to me. Now you in a sling. Now you want. And I was just like, I ain't coming to heaven like that. You know, I'm not doing that. So God brought me this book. And that's when I began to tell stories, because there's a quote in there that I would say literally every single day, every hour of every day, that got me to understand stories. So the first time I actually told a story where it was a beginning, middle, end was when I was in Toastmasters in 2009. And they said to me, it was the international speech contest. And I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. I figured I was going to lose. I've lost all the time. So, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And they said, what are you going to talk? I said, what do I talk about? They said, tell a story, tell something. And I was like, okay. So at that time, my first story was about Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars. Star Wars is like religion for me. Okay. Not like it is religion for me. And that was the first story I told, was this January 2009.
Wow.
I told that story of when I saw Star Wars. We were still in Jamaica High School. Me, Barry Watkins, who else went? I forgot. And they left me. So I didn't go that day. I went the next day. And when I saw Star Wars, it just changed my life.
So Barry, let me ask you this. So what was the name of that book that you were carrying around?
This book is called, this book is called The Wisdom of James Allen. But the book, there's like 5 books in here. But the book that that really truly changed my life is a book called As a Man Thinketh. As a Man Thinketh. And there is this part in it, if you don't mind, let me just say that part that changed my life, if you don't mind.
Please.
It's on, it's literally, I know the page is like on page 53, so it's not even that long, just one quote in there. It says, though your circumstances may be uncongenial, they shall not long remain so, but perceive an idea. You cannot strive within and striving in and not make it without. I'm sorry, I'm messing up right a little bit.
That's okay. Start over. You got it.
Here is the youth. I'm sorry. I just want to get that part. Say, yes. Though your circumstances may be uncongenial, they shall not long remain so, but perceive an idea and strive to reach it. You cannot travel within and stand still without. So I'm gonna put the book down just to let you know that sometimes if I don't do it, it takes me a second. Here is the youth, hard pressed by poverty and labor, confined long hours in an unhealthy workshop, unschooled, and lacking all the arts of refinement. But he dreams of better things. He thinks of intelligence, of refinement, of grace and beauty. He conceives of, mentally builds up an ideal condition of life. The vision of a wider liberty and a larger scope takes possession of him. Unrest urges him to action. And he utilizes all his spare time and means, small though they are, to the development of his latent powers and resources. Very soon, so altered has his mind become that the workshop can no longer hold him. It has become so out of harmony with his mentality that it falls out of his life as a garment, is cast aside. And with the growth of opportunity which fit the scope of his expanding powers, he passes out of it forever. Years later, we see this youth as a full-grown man. We find him a master of certain forces of the mind which he wields with worldwide influence and almost unequal power. In his hands, he holds the cords of gigantic responsibilities. He speaks, and lo, lives are changed. Men and women hang upon his words and remold their characters, and sun-like, he becomes the fixed and luminous center around which innumerable destinies revolve. He has realized the vision of his youth. He has become one with his ideal. And I
Wow.
used to say that every single day, sometimes every hour of every day, because the thing that got me about that was that he didn't get the homeboy hookup. Nobody hit the lottery. Nobody gave him nothing. He didn't have anything. The only thing that changed his life was his mind. And when I was living on, those of you who live in Chicago or know Chicago, DePaul University, where Roosevelt Avenue, Roosevelt Boulevard is, that alley, which is still there, the dumpsters, not the ones that I stayed in, but the dumpsters that I lived in was right there. And I would say that every hour, because I said he didn't have anything. And yet his whole life changed because of his thoughts. And I was like, okay, well, I can do that. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know, it was just like a pipe dream. But I said, maybe if I just say it, maybe if I do the same thing that my Christian friends would do when they would repeat the Bible over and over and over again, they would embody it. I said, maybe if I do that, that it would come true to me. And
Wow.
and when I competed, actually, I did the Star Wars speech. It was called The Return of the Jedi when I did it in 2009. I didn't win. I came in second place. And in 2012, I did a speech called In the Winter of 1992. And that was the speech I did at the World Championship of Public Speaking.
Wow. So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
As a man thinketh, that's a powerful scripture in the Bible. As a man thinketh, so is he.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard you talk about how it impacted you. And when people go to create a story and identify what makes them so passionate about life,
Mm-hmm.
it has to start with their thought process, because people have to sometimes change their mindset from their circumstances. Like you gave the example of your homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
I want to dive into that for a minute, because I'm sure when you realized you were going to be homeless, at first, your mind was totally different. I mean, how did you change your mindset? I mean, because when you were first homeless, were you scared? Were you angry? What were you feeling in the beginning?
I became homeless, and the reason why the message, my show, and the message resonates with me, because I became homeless not because of, again, drugs or alcohol. I still don't really drink. I'm probably one of the only Marines in the whole Marine Corps who's never been drunk in his life, because my mom drank, so drinking wasn't my thing. But what I didn't have value. I didn't have value, and that was just a buildup of anger. I was just angry because, again, I was a rock. I was a rock to my mother. I didn't really have, and she loved me. I mean, I'm okay. Her love was just in a different way, and I understand that now. And but then, oh my God, I was filled with rage. I mean, the reason why Star Wars resonated with me in the beginning, because I wanted to be Darth Vader. I was Darth Vader. My call sign in the Marine Corps was Vader. I have Vaders all over my house. Just Vaders. I have posters of Vaders. I have like 2 masks of Vaders. Again, my Marine Corps call sign, because I used to fly, was Vader. If you wanted something bad to happen to somebody, you just called me. And I didn't just like it. I loved it. It was
Wow.
just what I loved it. When I saw that scene, those of you who are Star Wars scenes, when I saw, which is still one of my favorite scenes in the movie, when I saw Darth Vader choke that guy from like 20 feet away and said, "Your lack of faith disturbs me." That's what I want to be when I grow up. I wanted to be Vader. And it was that anger that was eating me up, that was destroying me. That's why I became homeless. I had 3 degrees. I had a degree in biology, chemistry, and biochemistry when I became homeless. And that was the thing that was a part of my speech. I wasn't just like some guy, in the Marine Corps. I had, ribbons, medals, all kinds of stuff, but my soul was ugly. My
Ooh.
soul was worthless. I felt worthless.
So
And
that's important that you said that, because a lot of times I think people look down on what you want to call them, derelicts or bums or people they see on the street with the pushing the carts and everything, and they're judging them and they're thinking, oh, okay, he probably was a drug user or he was alcoholic, and you just clarified that you didn't do any of those things.
no,
So homelessness can come in the blink of an eye to anyone, whether you have money, whether
Mhm.
you don't have money, whether you have a drug addiction, whether you don't have a drug addiction. It's a state of mind.
Yeah.
Is that correct? It's a state
Oh,
of
I still I mentor. I still do work in homeless shelters. I speak all over the world, and I tell people when I say homeless, and I have some people tell me when they talk about stories. Well, Barry, I don't have a story like that, and and yet when you listen to their story, they may have a house, they may have a beautiful home, but their homelessness is within inside. I trust me, my mom. There was never a day that we didn't eat. I remember getting tired of steaks because my father worked for Washington Beef Company. My father would bring home half a cow, so we had steaks, we had plenty of food and everything else. It was, I didn't have a home inside of my soul. So homelessness is as you said, it's a state of mind. You can have a beautiful house, and some of your viewers, I'm sure, are resonating with it. You can have a house, you can have a good job, and I mean, again, suicide. And we say, "Oh, he was so beautiful," or "Oh, she was this and she had a job," but yet they jumped off of a building. Why? Because inside their soul, they felt worthless, and that's why
woo.
I use gemstones as an analogy to talk about people's values.
Yeah,
There's a part of my speech. And literally, I'm sitting at the same desk. You can't see the desk. I'm sitting at the same desk, not the same spot. It was on a Tuesday. I was practicing my speech for the World Championship, really putting it together. And there's a part of my speech that says, I used to envy the people that could sing and dance,
mm.
but I can't sing and I can't dance. But nobody wants to give nobody wants to give a job to somebody. Nobody wants to hear biochemistry from a bum. Nobody wants to give you a job when you can't fill out the second line of that application. You know, the one that says address? Yeah. I mean, so imagine having all of this that I had accomplished. I mean, I've written papers for the National Institute of Health, literally one international, two international. You look it up if you want to be bored.
Wow.
But despite all of that, I slept in dumpsters, not just the garbage cans. I slept in dumpsters. And my Marine Corps background was the way I was. I would educate some of the other guys. I knew some brilliant guys that was homeless. I knew a guy that was a banker. I knew a guy who fought in the Battle of the Bulge. He was an older guy. And what people don't understand about homelessness is not an on and off kind of thing. People think, oh, well, just homelessness is like it's the perfect storm. I had a job, but because I was the last one hired, I was the first one fired. Then I got sick, and then my bills started adding up. But then one thing after another thing, after another thing, after another thing. And one day I literally woke up and the sun just didn't shine anymore. It was dark all the time. I think
Wow.
Richard Pryor had a skit about that, saying, "Hey, the sun's gonna come out, and if you on a Tuesday, and if you missed it, that was it. That was my life."
You said one day you woke up and the sun didn't shine. It was dark.
Yeah.
Barry, there's so many people walking around in
Mm-hmm.
this world today
Mm-hmm.
that feel that darkness.
Yep.
Some of them know how to articulate it and some of them don't.
Yep.
Some of them know how to cope with it and some of them don't. Some of them get out of the darkness back into the light and some of them don't. So it's interesting that you talked about that because we're talking about your gift as a gemmological gem hunter and storyteller.
Gemmological storyteller.
But when you started talking about the homelessness, I didn't want to skip past that because so many people are affected by that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to ask you to share with individuals that may come back and do this replay. If they are watching this and they are homeless, what can they do to begin to fill that void that they may have, to fill that emptiness, to make their soul feel better and to make them more complete in their homelessness, in the middle of their homelessness? Because you got to begin in the middle of the homelessness. It starts while you're still in it. What can you tell them that could possibly help someone that may watch this, that may still be homeless?
The key thing to me, and that's where that quote comes in, is when you follow the quote, when you really understand the beginning of the transition, despite the fact of not having anything, he dreamt of better things. He thought of intelligence, of refinement, of grace and beauty. It starts with remembering when you weren't homeless, remembering when you won the spelling bee, remember when you were the best dancer in school, remember those things, when the things that you were successful at, the day you rode your bike for the first time. Mommy, I did it. Those kind of things. The movies saved my life, because there would be movies like Star Wars that I remember being the Luke Skywalker in the desert, and now, doing those things. And you have to create stories in your mind. You have to become a character in your own story. And there's 7 elements. I have workshops. There's 7 elements to every story. Movies, books, music. It's 7 elements. Sound, passion, the hero, and that could be you or someone else. The antagonist. The antagonist is the most important part of the story. You don't have a story without the antagonist. So awareness, transformation, and then sound again. So sound, passion, the hero, the antagonist, awareness, transformation, and then sound again. And if anyone's interested, you can send me an email, and I'll send it out to you. But the antagonist, like I said, that's the obstacle. And the antagonist can be internal or external. It could be your mother. It could be your husband. It could be your boyfriend. It could be your brother, sister, your boss at work. There's an antagonist that all of us are going through. And when you understand that person is in your story, you already know that, because that person's kicking your butt daily, mentally, spiritually, whatever. But then say to yourself, if this was a movie and that person was Darth Vader, how would you overcome that person? What would you do to become the hero in your own story?
And if you're interested in finding out how you can do that, and you want to know how you can hear and create your own story, please email Barry. I put his email on the screen. You are listening to Barry B. Mixer. He is one that he has his own program, and you'll be able to see that later on. You can tune into his show that he does and see exactly what he does on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, he has this out there, and you can definitely go ahead and pay attention. Barry has this on there, and you will not go wrong if you go ahead and just listen to him. Take a screenshot of it and check it out and see what it is. Just take a screenshot of that right there if you want to. Take a screenshot if you're really interested in finding out how you can create your story, because that's going to save your life. You heard him say that the story saved his life. So if you're watching this and that is your situation, we truly want you to be able to save your own life and do that, okay?
Now, in fact, you saying that, let me just add to it. When you understand what stories are, the most important thing that you can ever do in your life is tell a story. Okay. Even when people say, well, what about God? What do you think the Bible is? The Bible is a series of stories. And that's why people who didn't even know how to read back in slavery days still resonated with those stories. They knew the scriptures because those stories, and they kept repeating them over and over again until they embodied them. My favorite story, the only story I really used to know in the Bible, was Job, because I love the fact that no matter what Job went through in his life, Job never said, God is still God, my God.
That's
I don't care what you do. And even though I don't go to church, I don't go to church, and I don't have anything wrong with church. I just didn't go to church. I didn't grow up. Church was almost like entertainment for me. I didn't go to church to go to church, but God spoke through me. I am here because of God. There's no question in my mind. When I think about, literally, imagine, when was it really? It was like January 12th, 1993. It was cold, unbelievably cold, and rats need warmth too. So I'm literally in this dumpster, and I usually check the holes, and rats can get through anything. And I'm literally sleeping in this dumpster, had it set up, papers up, and I felt movement, like at least 2 or 3 animals around my feet.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
how did I get from there to here? I didn't get it from the United States government, my mom, none of that. It was God.
Okay.
So my thing is, if God did all that for me and I didn't read the Bible, whoo-wee, those of you who know the Bible, you just saving. Maybe that's the learning curve that I had to go through to get to what you already knew. So congratulations to you.
Wow. And then you went from all of that,
Mm-hmm.
and then you created a company.
Yep.
And you now have the Jim Hunter Gemmological Appraisals and Storytelling Services. And so, talk to me about when you became really into the gemstones and when you realized that there was so much to talk about that. Because that was fascinating to me. Like when we talked about me, because my name is Crystal, and we talked about the gems and crystals, and I told you about how I always wanted to be a diamond. And that was so fascinating to me when you told me that story about how crystals are and how diamonds are. And then you made me realize something about myself, because you said that about how it goes through the fire and how crystals are more durable and everything. I was like, oh my God. So that fascinated me. So I can only imagine what you do with helping people with these gem stories. How did that come about?
Long story. Cause I've been doing this for like 19 years now. But how did it happen was a former business partner who got me into jewelry. Not so much, my mother had some jewelry, but I was never a person that just liked jewelry. That wasn't my thing. I didn't grow up with that. My mother didn't have a whole bunch of jewelry. My friend or a business partner at that time, she is a jewelry designer. And she asked me at that point, I was working at Bally's. I was doing training. She was one of my clients, and she couldn't do a show by herself. And she said, could you help me? And, even though being from New York and I got a good Jewish name like Barry, I didn't know anything about jewelry. I'm like, girl, I don't know anything about jewelry. I knew a little bit about gold and stuff. And she said, could you help me? And I got into doing gemology just based on this one woman who came up to us, and my specialty was women's weight loss. And even though, I was good at it and everything else, she certainly needed my services. But she just looked at the jewelry and said something I had never heard in my life. She was like, not that I want, not that I like, I need. She said, ooh, I need this. Ooh, I need, like it was air. And when I started studying gemology, I saw that many of the same characteristics that you see in gemstones and precious metals and fine jewelry, you see in people. In fact, I'm doing a show tomorrow where I'm linking together. I want to give you the whole show, but I'm linking together gem identities, the characteristics that some gemstones have, pearls, diamonds, and jade, with people who have become transgendered. And so when you begin to look, so like your name is Crystal, and a diamond, in order to make a diamond has to be found usually anywhere from 90 to 200 miles in the earth. It has to go through temperature of like 3,000 to 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. You have to go through 850,000 pounds per square inch pressure. It comes up out of the ground at like 300 miles an hour. And if you don't get those conditions, you know what you get? And I don't have one right now here. You get a pencil. The same characteristics, that's the same chemical composition that's in the lead of a pencil is in a diamond. So that's what got me starting to think, why don't we value the things that we value? Like you and I are African American. We are Black people. And we know what's going on in this country with people of color, not just black, red, yellow, but in the gemstone world, our colors are highly valued. You and I would be chocolate diamonds. And right now, chocolate diamonds are running about $3,000-$4,000 an ounce. So why do you value chocolate diamonds or a black opal? Black opal is the highest opal species. If you have a black opal, oh, you can pay anywhere. You can pay $1,000,000 for a beautiful piece of black opal, but black people, you got a problem with. Or let's look at weight. So let's say this is not a real diamond. I don't want somebody to say, "Do you got a diamond that big?" This is not a real diamond. But if this was the diamond, this would be a 4,600 carat diamond. Now,
Wow.
what carat is in gemology, carat is weight. Carat is weight. So we live in a world where there's a lot of fat shaming, right? But if you was a diamond, you would say, "Girl, I put on 5 more carats." Everybody would be like, "Congratulations, girl, you look great. Wow,
Wow.
you got 5." So why don't? So the whole concept of my show is helping people, empowering people to discover the value of their own stories. Because once you understand what it takes to make a diamond, then you can extrapolate that out to understand what it took to make you, Crystal.
Wow. Yeah, that's the part that fascinated me. And when you talked about how you talk about a crystal, let me get it right if I remember. Something about a crystal is a gem. No, wait, let me get it right. One is a gem, one is not a gem. A diamond. I can't remember how you said it to me. It was so deep. It was like a
It was
crystal.
basically okay. So all minerals are crystals. Okay, all gemstones are crystals, but they have different values. Now, what a crystal is, it's a substance that has an organized structure to it. There's a certain organized structure. So a diamond has what's called an octahedron structure. So not to make it too complicated, it's basically like two pyramids. If you put two pyramids together on their base, that's an octahedron structure. Or sometimes it's a cubic structure, or a dodecahedron. It means it has 12 sides. So it's that structure that makes that crystal special. So when you're looking at a diamond, what you want to understand whether it's a diamond or not is, does it have that structure? Gem identification. So the same thing with you, Crystal. There's things about you that make you who you are.
Right.
There's lots. I know 5 people with their first name is Crystal. One of them is in my club in the Toastmasters club. Her name is Crystal. One of them I'm going to be competing with this weekend. Her name is Crystal. But the type of crystal you are is different than the type of crystal they are. And gemology has helped me really understand not only gemology, but how some people can grow up in the same environment, like 2 sisters, 2 brothers, same
Right.
environment, and yet can be totally different from each other. The same thing as a crystal. Every emerald is not an emerald. Every emerald doesn't have the same color. Every emerald, they may have the same basic structure, but they don't have the same, they have the same components in it. Every gemstone, there's gemstones that have something in it. Those are called allochromatic. Your diamonds, your rubies, your emerald. Those are inclusions. A diamond is made out of carbon. It's made out of carbon. But a diamond, literally, I'm not a diamond. A sapphire has corundum in it, and that's what gives that its color. So it's something inside of it that gives it its color.
Wow. So gemstones can be very, very, very interesting for people to understand. And the real interesting part is how it can help you to understand yourself. Understanding, and I would have never put that correlation together, that understanding a gem will help me to understand myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I hear you talk about Toastmasters quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I never got the opportunity. Every time I tried to get involved, I just couldn't. But I know a lot of people who are good speakers and presenters have gone through Toastmasters.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell those who may not be familiar with what exactly is Toastmasters and what they can gain from getting involved?
Toastmasters, let me start out by saying Toastmasters changed my life. And I'm not saying that because, I'm one of these people there's people who are totally into Toastmasters and everything else, and they go to every meeting. Toastmasters changed my life because Toastmasters gave me an opportunity to tell a story, to tell my story. As I said, there's the most important thing you can ever do in your life is tell your story. So what Toastmasters gave me is a platform in order to not only to put together my story, but to also and figure out my story, but to present it in a way where other people can hear it and other people can be empowered by my story. Other people can be excited about my story. Okay. And then within my story, they see their own story. That's where those 7 elements come in, where the hero is the hero is the relationship you have with the audience. The audience has to feel you. So when I say that I'm homeless, as you said, there's lots of other people in the world who have been homeless. And there's people who are watching the show who are either have been homeless, close to homeless, going, so, or have relatives. So my story, I'm speaking to not only about myself, but I'm speaking to those people. And so when I did my speech, I started my speech out, the 1992 speech, by saying, you never really know a person until you hear their story. Because most people did not know that I was homeless. This was 1990. I'm sorry. This was 2012. I was homeless in 2009. I'm sorry, 1992. So in 1992, people, by this point, I'm wearing diamond earrings and, a whole suit and everything else. So when they said, it was like, you were homeless? I'm like, yeah, I was homeless. I started my speech out by saying, you never know a person until you hear their story. Mano Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, distinguished guest. I came to Chicago in the summer of 1992, and by the winter of that same year, I was homeless. Yes, I was once homeless. I slept in cars, I slept in abandoned buildings, I slept in alleys, I slept in dumpsters, and if I was lucky, I slept at the Pacific Gardens Mission, which is a shelter in downtown Chicago. And for those of you who have never met a homeless survivor before, let me be the first to tell you that homelessness was a horrific experience. It was the worst year of my life.
And it's not final. So if you didn't catch that, it's not a final position or destination. You can come out of it. You can change your mindset. You can take advantage of the resources and do those things and get out of it. So I think
you know what's the hardest part about being homeless? The hardest part about being homeless is hope, because it's dangerous, because every day you wake up and you say, okay, today's the day I'm going to change, and it doesn't change. Today's the day I'm going to change, and it doesn't change. Today's the day I'm going to change, and it doesn't change. And there's people that I know right here in Chicago that I see from time to time who were with me when I was homeless. They're still homeless. And then you get to the point where you almost get used to being homeless. Homelessness is your thing.
I'm glad you said that.
So to be is the same thing with people being unemployed. You get so used to being unemployed that it feels funny to have a job. You just don't feel right because you've been without it for so long. You've gotten comfortable.
Yes. And can I stop you right there for a minute? Mm-hmm. In my city here in Raleigh, North Carolina, we have a lot of underground neighborhoods where people are living in tents. They have made their own little subdivision of tents. If you go in a certain part of the woods, it's unbelievable. They have blankets down, they have tents up. Some of these people are the people that you see sometime if you're in the city, and a lot of times you go to certain intersections and there's always somebody upholding a sign. It's like, it seems like that's like a busy intersection. It's because they live nearby somewhere. But the thing about it, Barry, is some of them have had the opportunity to leave. And they were like, well, why am I going to go somewhere and pay rent and pay bills when I can live out here in my tent?
Yeah. I had a friend not a friend, but somebody who I was experiencing homelessness with. It was I remember it was always cold. It seemed the cold was really the thing that I remember most of the time about my experience. But we were it was freezing cold. I knew, because I'm a Marine, I knew how to create fires and everything else. So I had a fire in one of those 50-gallon drums, and we were warming ourselves. And that's when I really started saying, as a man thinketh, all the time. So I think I was saying it, and I had a smile on my face. And this guy who had been out there for a long time. He like, what the, I'll save you the words that he was using, but like, what the heck are you smiling about? And I just said, well, I'm not going to be here. And he was like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. You going to be here. And I was just like, there's no way God gave me all this inside of me to be here.
But you had to get there mentally.
You got to get that. I just knew that what I was discovering about myself and the things that I had done and the successes that I've had in the past, that I remembered when I did good in school. I remembered when I did this in the Marine Corps. I remember when I had ribbons and medals and I was Sergeant Mixon and all these things. God didn't give me that to be here. I don't know how the heck I was going to get out of it, but I knew that, and that's why that quote kept coming again and again and again and again and again and again, because I knew that the way, when you tell a story, that's how change happens, because nothing has value without a story. If I die tomorrow, I want people to understand that the only reason this is not worth millions and millions of dollars is because people have decided that something that's made out of polyplastic resin is not as valuable as something if this was in the ground. So therefore, it doesn't have value. If all of a sudden people didn't want natural diamonds and they said, I just want fake diamonds, and if you can give me a really good fake diamond, I'll pay X amount of dollars for, now this becomes worth millions and millions of dollars.
You know what comes to my mind?
So if that works for jewelry, then that has got to work for you.
And you know what the sad thing is, people put so much value on things such as diamonds and jewelry. And I remember, Barry, when I didn't like wearing costume jewelry because it was like you were trying to, it felt like you were pretending to have something, the real thing. But then as I got older and I changed my mindset, I recognized I love this costume jewelry. I found some things. It was about, the colors. It was about how it matched what I wanted to wear. It was about my mindset. It was about, I have real jewelry. I have real silver and stuff. But yeah, sometimes I'll put on my costume because I like the way it looks. So it's just interesting. It is all about what you said in the beginning, as a man thinking, But you talked a lot about value. And you said a person can't tell their story till they understand their value. But what if they don't value themselves? Will they be able to find the value of their story if they don't value themselves?
They can't value themselves without knowing the story. That's the only way it happens. Think about it. Anything, if I said to you, Crystal, aliens are coming, and on the alien said that you can just take one thing with you. All right, that's it. That you can take one thing, and let's say,
let's just use a hurricane, or let's just use something.
Okay, a hurricane. Okay, a hurricane. You can only take one thing, right? You live in North Carolina, so hurricanes are more. Yeah, okay, cool. So a hurricane, you can only take one thing with you, and you go in your house and you come out with a spoon, okay, or you come out with this thermos, and I'm like, all the stuff you got, Crystal, you got a thermos? That's the only thing you have? And you said to me, what would you have to do? You would have to tell me what the story of this thermos is. You would have to tell me this thermos was the thermos that your great-grandfather gave your great-mother. That's how they met. This thermos was with your grandmother when this thermos saved your grandmother's life. That's why I got dents on it, and without this thermos, my grandmother would have died. Therefore, my mother wouldn't have been born. Therefore, I wouldn't have been born. Wow. So this thermos, once you tell me the story of this thermos, now this thermos has value. This thermos was nothing. If I just said, here's a thermos, you'd be like, okay, there's billions of these. I got one at home. But this thermos, because of the story, now this thermos has value. And it's the same thing with people. Until you know what that person is or what that person has gone through, then you don't know who that person is. You don't understand who that person is. It just has, okay, it doesn't, you're just a person. You're just Barry. You're just Crystal. So what? I'm a bald-headed black man. How many people did I just describe? At least 3 or 4 million bald-headed black men out there. That's just in this country. What about in other countries? So if that's the only thing you're going on, then no, I don't have value. But once you understand, oh, he does this. Oh, he's done this. Oh, he's done this. Oh, he has completed this. Oh, he's done this. This is what he does. Now I have value.
Wow.
So that's what you have to do. And that's where the similarities between people and gemstones come in, is understanding that value. A gemstone is a rock. There's countless stories of people who've walked over fields that didn't know what it was. In fact, the California Gold Rush, 1848, 1849, California Gold Rush. 300,000 people went to California. One guy in particular, he lived in Australia. He came all the way to Australia, all the way to California, like a 6-7 month trip on one of those old, clipper ships. Worked the fields 12, 14-hour days, came back with absolutely nothing. Left California with just his shovel, a pick, and the clothes he had on his back. But when he got back to Australia, he started looking around and he noticed that the same fields that he saw, the same geography that he saw in California, was a lot like the fields here.
Wow.
And then the Australian Gold Rush happened.
Wow.
He discovered gold because of what he went through in California. Had he not gone through that, and he lived in that area beforehand, so it wasn't like it was new. He just didn't understand the value of it. He didn't understand the story of it, so therefore he didn't understand the value.
And you know what, Barry? It's not only important to know so you can share your story, but it's important that you know the story of people that you connect with, like to get in relationships with, because their story may have a lot to do with how compatible you are.
Exactly.
So that's deep. Now, I hear that a lot these days. People are talking about the story, and I create a story time because I feel like everybody's story matters. Sometimes society make people feel like your story is not a good story unless it's a negative story, because society and the internet thrives off of negativity. Sometimes, when you look at the reality world and stuff, they make up this thing because, people like drama. But I want people to understand that your story matters regardless of what your story is. It could be a story of struggle. You could be an overcomer. You could have survived something. You could have, beat cancer or something. It doesn't matter what the story is. Everybody's story matters. So I want to ask you this as we try to bring this to a close, because we could go on and on because stories are fascinating. How important is it for people to really understand their story if they are struggling in their life, Barry, if they are stagnated in their life, if they have not found that success in their life yet? How important is it for them to find their story in order for them to change their whole life? I mean, because without knowing their story, that might be why they're stuck. Is that correct?
Yeah, because you don't know what part you play in your own story. You're just a character. All of us have seen a movie where someone, where the character, I'll use Star Wars, all the guys that was the stormtroopers, when they would shoot the stormtroopers, they were all dressed in white. So you didn't go, oh man, they shot Bob. I like Bob. Why? Because you didn't know who Bob was. You didn't know who was in that suit. He was just a guy. He was a character. And many of us, or let's use Star Trek. Remember how it would always be Kirk, Spock, maybe McCoy, and then they would be Ensign Joseph. Ensign Joseph was going to die. You knew that if anybody was going to die, it was Ensign Joseph. Because why? You didn't know his story. He was just a character. He was just a body. And it's the same. We treat ourselves, we don't understand the character in our own story. We just move along in life, and we let other people use us in their stories, but we don't use ourselves. I'm a character in other people's stories. Oh, Barry's this, but how do you feel about yourself?
Yes.
How do you feel about yourself? Yes, I was homeless, and I tell people I was homeless because I want people to understand that what really changed for me was the way I was thinking. Nobody gave me anything. It's just that I just said, you know what? If I saw this on screen, what would I do? what would Barry Mixon do? If Barry Mixon was a character on the screen, what would he do? Okay. And it helps you understand not only just your story, but how you've let other people in your story
Impact your story.
impact your story. I've been married, well, I say 2.5 times, and I never talk badly about my ex-wife. I never talk badly about my first wife. I mean, just because, or my mom, the greatest example of my mom. My mom was not, my mother would never win Mother of the Year award. Never going to happen. Okay. It just wouldn't happen. But that wasn't her role. That wasn't her role in my story. My mother's insisting on me going to school, insisting you better not come home with anything less than a B. Okay, that was what my mother told me. Don't come home if you come home with less than. In Jamaica high school, that's why I was able to do good in Jamaica high school, because my mother said, don't come home with anything less than a B. And I used to fail math like it was Christmas. And I remember when I was in third grade, I stood in the back of the classroom I stood in the back of the classroom for 30 days because I got a U on my report card, but I didn't dare bring back home to my mother, because that was death. That was instant death. I believed that. So although my mother, when Mother's Day is coming and people go, oh, I love my mother. I love my mother now, but my mother wasn't, I don't sing those kind of songs about my mom, but I understand the value that my mother played in my story.
So I got to ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us have so many things that happen in our lives. And sometimes, let me just keep it personal and be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
I have had so many losses in my life, a lot of grief in my life. I've had a lot of obstacles in my life. I've had a lot of disappointments in my life. And so sometimes when I'm telling my story,
mm-hmm.
I want to tell it all. You know what I'm saying? And you don't know how to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's something that you help people to do, if they contact you, do you help people how to compose their story, how to shorten their story, how to make it a compelling story without rambling and doing all that stuff?
Absolutely. And that's where Toastmasters comes in. Whereas I've been to Toastmasters for 16 years and I've won 6 championships. Went to the World Championship once. Right now, I am the 2022 International Speech champion right now. And on Friday, I will be competing for the Evaluation Championship. That's Friday. And then on Sunday, that's a district championship. And then on Sunday, I'll be competing in another district for what's called table topics, where you're speaking extemporaneously. So what I teach people how to do is, when you understand stories, they don't have to be long. Think about any piece of music you've ever heard in your life. 3 to 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes. When you, here's a homework assignment for you and your viewers. Listen to the 1812 Overture. You can listen to the whole thing. It's about 16 minutes and 59 seconds long. But what I recommend for my clients, listen to the last 4 minutes. The last 4 minutes of the 1812 Overture, that's the one that goes dun 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 dun. That's literally all 7 elements in that. All 7 elements: sound, passion, the hero, the antagonist, awareness, transformation, and sound is in that whole thing. The last 4 minutes of it. And you can hear each change. And when you understand how stories work, now you have more control over your life, because that person that was the bad guy, you understand how they play into your story. That job that you got fired in, now you understand that job is the job that you had to get fired in order to do what you're doing right now. This is my classroom. I teach all over the world.
Yes.
The public school system did not want me. They did not want me. They didn't want me. Oh, Mr. Mixon, why are you teaching math and science? What? What are you? I failed math like it was all the time. I don't want no other kids to feel like me. Well, Mr. Mixon, we just want you to teach this. So when the pandemic happened, I was like, and I was already traveling back and forth to France. Anyhow, I said, you know what? I can do this for myself. So here's my microscope. Here's my blackboard. And I literally I teach in Asia, India, Europe. I'm going to Europe for a month next month to teach middle kid. So what? And I was sad when CPS let me know they didn't want me no more. I was like, damn, what am I going to do now? I graduated from Northwestern, top of my class. They didn't want me. But out of that pain came, and then what? I don't have it right here, but I have an Oscar. I earned an Oscar, and they make it. Not that obviously I'm not an actor, but a community Oscar from a Congressional Global Oscar for being Teacher of the Year, 2021. And the congressman that's in this area called me up one day. It was on a Tuesday, and he said, "I speak to Barry Mixon, please." He has a Danny K. Davis, and I thought he was joking. I'm like, "Come on, who's this?" "Oh, this is serious. This is Danny Davis. Can I speak to Barry Mixon?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And then he said, "I just want to let you know that you've earned the Congressional Global Oscar of the Year." And I got a chance to speak in front of 35 million people in India and China and everything else. Yeah. How did that come? Because somebody told me no. So when people talk about Chicago public school system, yeah, I can tell you all kinds of horror stories. But for me, thank you.
Right. That's it. That's it right there. That's the point we have to get to. We have to get to the point. And everybody doesn't have a Barry Mixon to show them that. So everybody doesn't understand, like you said, to turn the pain into passion, that our stories define us. They don't understand that you don't know anybody until you really know their story. You don't know them because you look at them and see what they show you and they tell you. You don't know them until you know the turning point that they went through, the trials that they went through in their life that made them who they are today, the losses that they've had. Yeah. A lot of people don't understand. Like, a lot of people don't understand me because I'm about a lot of pictures and videos. They're probably like, this lady always posting something. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because one time my cousin said to me, she said, that's because of all her losses. That's because of the things that she's lost. So she captures those moments because she's hanging on to those moments because of the things that she can't get back, Right. So it's just interesting when she said that. I'm like, wow, she gets it. You know what I'm saying? So everybody doesn't always understand everybody. So I challenge you to figure out the story of the people in your lives. Be it your parents, be it your siblings, be it your significant other, the person you're getting to know. Really find out their story, and then you will really understand who they are.
And you won't make the mistakes that people make. Not to cut you off. You won't make the mistakes that people make. There's a reason why people get divorced. You know why people get divorced? Because people didn't know their stories. I didn't know my ex-wife, beautiful and everything else. I didn't know she was a cocaine addict. I didn't know that.
So you didn't understand her behavior.
I didn't understand her behavior. All I was caught up was the way she looked and light skin and green eyes and body, and she had like 2 master's degrees and all this other stuff. And I thought, I was like, wow, oh my God, she's beautiful. She's this. I didn't know who she was. I mean, my mom was an alcoholic, and I wound up marrying. This is my second marriage. I married somebody who was not only an alcoholic, but an alcoholic and a cocaine addict. Okay? But I don't blame her. I don't see, this is the power of understanding. So I don't blame her. My wife, I'll tell you today, if I saw her today, thank you. Thank you. Because who told me about Toastmasters?
She did.
My wife, she did. She didn't like the way I talked. She was like, oh my God. You talk all the time. I'm so sick of you talking. She told me I was a fountain of useless information. Wow. That's what she said as an insult. Wow. You're just a fountain of useless information. Oh my God. Why don't you join this organization called Toastmasters?
So you can talk. Because you felt like if you go there,
yeah, like I was a kid. Just go to the little kids' table. Just go. So I joined Toastmasters.
And now look.
And now I literally speak all over the world. So thank you, sweetie. Thank you. My lightsaber, which I have actually right here, this came from her. This was an authentic Darth Vader rendition of Darth Vader's lightsaber. This was the last gift that my ex-wife gave me. She
Wow.
gave it to me, and that's when I created the speech.
Wow.
I used that lightsaber. There's people that only know me as the Jedi, and that came from a woman who did not want to be with me. So when you understand stories, you understand why that person was in your life.
Yes. So I'm gonna tell you, like, if you just tuning in here, we're listening to Barry Mixon, and Barry is the master of stories, man. He will get you right. He will allow you to get your story right. I showed it earlier, and I showed everybody how you can follow him, and make sure you go in there and check him out on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, you can tune in right there. You can find out how to follow him and really make sure that you are watching his show. Okay, I want you to take a picture of that, screenshot it if you have to. This is when he goes live. This is when he does what he do. It's going to help you to discover the value of your story.
I'll give your viewers a hint for tomorrow's show. Comes on Wednesdays, 9:00 Central Standard Time. And tomorrow's show is a story that happened for me, for real, for me. I have a friend who is not a friend, but somebody I know in Toastmasters. I've known him for quite some time, for about 5-6 years. I lost contact with him because we're not in the same club anymore. Things of this. He was on LinkedIn, and I just looked and I said, "Oh, let me see what he's doing," because he does speaking things and everything else. And when I was reading through his information, about 1/4 of the way down, he said, "I'm transgender."
Wow.
I fell out. I was like, "What?"
Wow.
Because I talked to this guy. I've heard his speeches, and the thing that I knew about him was that he was different. But I always thought he was just gay. He was just very feminine, and I was just like, okay, he's gay, whatever. But I had no idea that he was trans. And what really got me was he showed the picture of himself. That's why I knew it was him. And then he had a picture of this young woman. At first thought, I said, "Oh, this must be his girlfriend." But I said, "Man, she looked a little young." Okay. Wow. And then I said, "Wait a minute, she looked kind of a lot like him." So I'm thinking maybe it's his daughter. That was him. That was him when he was a woman.
Wow.
And because of the way my brain works, I said, okay, how does this exist in the gemmology world? And I'm not going to give away the show, but pearls, diamonds, and jade.
Wow.
You don't see it. Woo! It blows my mind. It's like I'm sitting here like, oh my God. And if you watch the show, I'm going to be able to show you how you can use that story, and there's no controversy. There's no controversy because you understand what a gemstone is. You know what a pearl is. You know what a diamond is. You know what jade is. Everybody on the planet knows that. And what I'm going to show you tomorrow is some of those same characteristics can be applied to someone who's transgender, someone who might be part of the LGBTQ plus community. And it's not that you agree with the story. Going back to something you said, just because somebody has a story doesn't mean that you agree with it.
Right.
Doesn't mean that it's you. Doesn't mean that something is in you. But the power of that is understanding. Let's put it this way. I have clients who don't like diamonds. I have clients who don't like rubies. I have clients that would never wear jade. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It just doesn't have value for you. Ooh. You don't like wearing diamonds. You don't like wearing jade. You don't wear pearls. But somebody does. And that person has value. That thing, that substance has value for them. So am I transgender? No, I'm not. There's nothing inside of me. There's some things there's some days I wish, like women like, damn, I wish I could think like that, something like this. But I don't. I have friends who are gay. And sometimes I get jealous of gay men because they just dress so nice all the time. You know what? I mean, there's a lot of them who their dress is like, their mustache, it's just perfect. And I'm like, okay. Wow. I'm a Marine. I wear, jeans or Dickies and the guys, and they can be doing everything and still be just perfectly dressed. So I'm like, okay, you got an extra gene to make that work because it don't work for me, you know. But once you understand someone's story, even though it's not what you would do, you appreciate what they can do.
And you know what? So that story has what you call inherent drama for sure. He had some stuff in the story, the excitement and all that. It's like the finish. And some people probably feel like they don't have that. They have a boring life. They have a boring story. So as we come to a close, I want you to explain in conclusion why it is so important that people really find their story, because the story is going to create their transition. Mm-hmm. It's going to bring them success and all those things. So I really want you to allow people to understand the importance of that, because if they didn't catch it, mm-hmm. and they are just, like you said, walking around being used by others, being a mm-hmm. part of their story, mm-hmm. helping others to create their story, helping others to make their story success. It's kind of like the employee. Mm-hmm. A lot of people became entrepreneurs because they understood their gift. And they said, you know what, I'm tired of helping make this man money. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go make my own money. And that's understanding the value of the story. Can you bring that to a close for us, please, Barry?
Everybody has the best thing that I do, the most enjoyable thing that I do is to help people bring out their stories, because everyone has a not only just a story, but has an interesting story. There's something that you can do. I don't care who you are. There's something that you can do that you do well at. I don't care if you know all the buttons on the video game. You can do that really well. You can cook chocolate chip cookies really well. You know how to change a tire in 3 seconds flat. Women is really easy because women multitask. Women can do their makeup, take care of kids, doing all this thing. If you got a child and that child is not out there doing crazy stuff, you got a talent. Okay, if you lost 3 pounds, losing weight is hard. You got a talent. Okay, you did something. If you know how to file paperwork and your house is still running and all this stuff, you got a talent. And it's not a matter of, it's as I tell people, the most important person for you to tell a story to is not to them, it's to you. The first person that I had to tell the story to of who Barry Mixon is Barry Mixon.
And you got to believe it.
Mixon. I have to believe it, right? Yes, you have to hear it. And the more you hear what makes you different, not even great, what makes you different? What is it? If I'm a gemstone, what is this inside of my gemstone, my molecular structure that makes me different? The person that I'm going to have on the show, we're doing an interview tonight. What she said was, she's trans, and what she said was, she said, Barry, the biggest mistake that most people make is people think that I changed, that I decided to become. He was male. He is now a female, trans woman. The mistake that they make is they think I made a change, like I switched sides. No, she said, I've always been female. Other people identified me as male. I have always been female. And I'm like, wow.
Wow. There goes again with the thinking.
Right. Because and the last thing I'll say is, so think about a diamond. A diamond, 80% of diamonds, 85% of diamonds are not even used for jewelry. They're used for industrial purposes. Why? Because the diamond is the hardest known natural substance, right? So when you buy a diamond, there's no woman that's ever bought a diamond that said, you know what, I want to buy a diamond because it's really, 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 really hard. Or imagine, Crystal, you're my girlfriend. Hey, baby, I got you a diamond because it reminded me of you. And you're like, oh, Barry, that's so sweet. It reminded you of how beautiful or how much I sparkle? No, it's because it's the hardest known natural substance in the world. You're like, what? What are you trying to say? Because that's what a diamond is. The diamond's characteristic is to be hard.
Wow.
But you didn't put it on your ears, your necklace, your fingers because of that. You put it on because it's pretty. So
Yeah.
until someone understands who you are, until you understand who you are, you're letting either somebody tell you who you are or you're guessing. They have to guess who you are because you didn't tell them the story.
And I thank you for that because I remember when we got reacquainted. And once again,
Mhm.
if you don't know, Barry and I went to high school together. You
Mhm.
know, we graduated back in 1978 from Jamaica High up on that hill, Gothic Drive, you know.
Mhm.
And when we got together for the reunion, and you started saying, Crystal, wow, this is amazing. And I really started appreciating stories because, Barry, after that reunion, the text messages, the emails, the phone conversations I got, they had me in tears
Mhm.
because of the stories
Mhm.
that I was hearing from people by coming back to this reunion. That's why I'm looking forward to doing another one
Mhm.
and getting people to make it, bring us back together again. I hate you can't come back because I know you'll be around the world speaking to help
Yeah.
people. But I'm telling you right now, when you said what you said to me about the value of what I did
Mhm.
with this whole event,
Mhm.
it really touched me because it made me realize more about who I was, you
Yeah.
know. And sometimes people don't know how to find that. And it's because of your gift as a storyteller that you were able to have that type of insight, you know what I mean? So it is so important, guys, if you are struggling and finding who you are, reach out to Mr. Barry Mixon. Let him help you out. Contact him, email him, not just for a workshop, not just for a presentation, but just to find out about your story. Let him help you
Mhm.
create your story, man, because I'm telling you, it'll change your life. It could be the difference between, you know, your next paycheck. You know, look at it like dollars and cents if you have
Mhm.
to. If you're not making the money you want to make, if
Mhm.
you're not asking for what you need to be asking for because you don't understand your value. Come
Mhm.
on, Holy Spirit. If you don't understand who you are and you don't understand the value of your services, if you don't
Mhm.
understand the value of your product, of your creation, of your, whether you have a patent or not, I'm
Mhm.
telling you, you need to understand it. And you don't, maybe not telling that story right. Maybe not putting that right pitch together, and Barry can help you do that.
Mhm.
You
Oh,
know, so Barry,
absolutely.
I thank you. I thank you. I
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for this conversation. I thank you for. I know it was hard. We had to reschedule because I couldn't get with you before. Because you were going to France like you do. But I feel so honored that I was able to finally get you here today. I'm so proud
Thank
of
you.
what you're doing. I'm so proud of everything that's happening for you, and I'm just thankful
And
for
I'm
the.
thankful to you. I want to say to you, to your audience, you talk about people changing lives. I don't know what made, because I don't remember really anybody from high school. So I don't remember Crystal from high school, but there's some reason why she came into my life. And I'm just telling you, she changed my life because there was a whole 4 years. You know how everybody talks about what they did in high school and all this stuff? I didn't remember anything about Jamaica High School. I remember where the school was. I remember what the school looked like. I don't remember the teachers. I don't remember anything. The only people I knew was Barry Watkins, um, um, Millie Moy, who
Oh
was
yeah,
my
and then we
first
got her
Millie
back.
Moy.
People
I
forget
dated a
that
Chinese
too.
girl and stuff, and my
Yes.
mother was like, "Oh my god." Okay, and Lonnie and Lonnie. Who? No, what's Lonnie's name now? Calvin. Right, Calvin. Right. I knew him as Lonnie, and Lonnie, I hated Lonnie. I thought I wanted, and in fact, part of the reason I joined the Marine Corps was because I wanted to beat Lonnie up. And then when the reunion came, I found out Lonnie is now Calvin. I'm like, and he's a reverend. I'm like, oh, so I don't even get to beat you up because you got Jesus on your side now. I'm like, oh man, you done messed it up. But my point is, Crystal, feel the a huge hole in my heart after that. It changed my life because I was able to put things together. And I met Donna, and Donna was one of our classmates who, God rest her soul, she died. There was so many things that Donna, talking to her, helped me put pieces together from back in the neighborhood, all these things. And again, that's all part of the story. So the story, my story is even more richer because of you,
Wow.
because of the person, the character that you played in my story. And I was able to recognize that. And now part of what I do is to uh, pay that forward And that's what Gem Hunter stories have been. Notice it's called Gem Hunter stories, not the Gem Hunters, not my stories. It's stories, because gemstones relate to that's the one thing that we all agree upon. Everybody, whether you like it or not, like diamonds, rubies, emeralds, at least if you don't like it, you value it. So what if we lived in a world where people valued each other, whether or not they had them in their life, that everyone valued each other's story?
Yeah. Yes. And in the internet world, the way you can show your value is by what you see on the screen, by liking, by sharing, by commenting, and by subscribing. So I really hope that you got the value out of this story time segment. You know, everybody's segment is different and it has a purpose, but the purpose of this segment was for Barry to tell his story, but for him to help you unlock yours. See, so his purpose in his life is to help you unlock your story. And so I sincerely want you to contact him and email him. Barry, I want to thank you so much again for it. I look forward to getting back with you again and getting together. I definitely look forward to more conversations. And I hope that this was just as much of importance to you as it was to me, because I look forward to connecting with my classmates, for people that I know. It's one thing to do this with people I don't know, but when I get with people I know, it's just special to me. Yeah. It's special because I want people to be able to share their stories. You know, you're on amazing platforms. You're out there in the worldwide, man. You're doing some big things. So just don't forget us little people out here.
Never. That's you know what is the last thing I'll say is when you're coming up, sometimes of course you have the haters and people. Oh, he's so arrogant, and I'll tell people the same thing. I say, when you've lived in dumpsters in your life, when you've literally eaten out of garbage cans, I mean, I'm not talking about just like eating out of like picking all, old spaghetti and stuff like this and eating them like, oh, man, this is a good biscuit. It got a couple of, when you've lived in that lifestyle, ego kind of goes out the window, because you remember when you didn't take a shower for 2 weeks. You kind of remember when your teeth were yellow because you didn't have toothpaste at all, that kind of thing. So it's kind of hard to say, well, I'm Barry Mixon now. And because in my mind, that's what God says, Negro, remember when? I'd be like, okay, God, you're right. Don't let me take you back there. God, I got it.
Yeah.
So if you want to know your story and not understand your story for an interview, I help lots of people how to tell your story to separate yourself from everybody applying for that job. That's how I did it. I got to Northwestern University on a scholarship over a 7-minute and 15-second phone call. 7 minutes. I didn't even know the guy. He asked me to tell a story. I said it. I gave him my Jedi speech because he didn't think you can do a speech in 7 minutes and 30 seconds. And I said, you got to stop watch. He said, yeah. I said, okay. And I did the whole thing without the lightsaber. I did the whole thing. And I said, what was my time? He said, about 7:17. I said, okay, 2 seconds off because I'm out of practice. He was like, that was amazing. Boom. Full scholarship to Northwestern University.
And there you
That's
have it.
That's the power of being able to tell your story.
Learn how to tell your story in 7 minutes and 7 seconds, or to do that elevator pitch that you need, because we all need an elevator pitch. That's Barry, much love to you. I love
Thank you. Thank you.
You have listened to another segment of Story Time, ladies and gentlemen. Barry Mixon, go follow him. My name is Crystal Bodie Smith. My mission as a Hope Catalyst is to stir up the gift, instill hope, and save life. We're going to be back with a special segment on this Friday with Grady Bussey. We're going to be talking about some amazing things that's going on in Raleigh, North Carolina, so we don't want to miss it. But we'll see you on the next Story Time, all right, where everybody's story matters. Have an amazing day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Barry. Bye-bye. See y'all next time.
Bye-bye.